inflammation in the body is the root cause of nearly every disease known to man. Ayurveda and the six pillars of health, all of those work to reduce inflammation.
Yeah.
And when you work every day to reduce inflammation, then you are slowing down the aging process and you are reversing it.
Embark on a journey to defy time with LMAO, Laughing My Age Off podcast. I'm your host, Erica Kelly, and I started this show because, like you, I'm curious about the secrets to staying youthful as the years go by. Join me as we discover the secrets to slowing down the aging process, exploring expert insights, cutting-edge research, and personal experiences that uncover the art of aging gracefully. It's time to laugh, learn, and embrace a life full of vitality together.
Welcome to another episode of Laughing My Age Off podcast, where we dive into the art of aging gracefully. Today, we're very excited because we have Paula Swope with us, author of Thought Snob, a Chopra certified meditation instructor, and a total well-being life coach. Paula's expertise is rooted in the ancient wisdom of Ayurveda, a philosophy that guides much of her work today. And today we'll be exploring 6 pillars of health to help slow down the aging process. These include sleep, meditation, movement and mind-body coordination, healthy emotions, one of my favorites, I can't wait to dive into that. 5, self-care, and finally, optimal nutrition. Now, these are all backed by science to help slow down the aging process. So let's get ready for an insightful conversation with Paula and some practical tips you can start using today. So welcome, Paula.
Oh, thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
And, you know, this is the first time Paula and I are meeting. She's from Kentucky. Can you tell? I love it.
They love the accent or they hate it. It's
Oh, I
like
love it.
no in between.
I always feel like, and this is just my perspective, right? We all come from different perspectives, but when you have a Southern accent, I immediately think nice and just warming. That's just, so I'm like, oh, good. She's nice and she's just warm. Like, so you have this calming effect. So I just want to throw that out there and give that back to you. But I want to, before we get into some of these pillars, you know, and I'm very excited to talk about these and our listeners too, because we haven't touched on Ayurveda and I've always been interested in it. It seems like a huge topic. And before we hit record, we kind of mentioned that there's, you know, we could probably talk for hours on this, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, but before we do that, I want to take us a little step back and to learn about your personal journey. So can you share, you know, how you fell into this? Because you have quite a background now, you know, you're a certified meditation instructor, you're a life coach, like, were you always wanted to be there? Like, take us through that journey.
Now, my bachelor's degree is in political science, and
Oh,
my master's is in public administration. And so, no,
that's
this is
way
not
different.
a path that I ever anticipated going down. And I actually dropped out of high school. And had I stayed in, I would have been voted most unlikely to become a spiritual gangster.
Oh,
No,
okay.
this is definitely not a path that I ever anticipated going down. Now, as a child, I did have a burning desire to write.
Hmm.
And I always said, I'm going to write a book about this. I'm going to write a book about that. And nobody really paid any attention to me, but I didn't know what the book was going to be about. And I sure as hell never thought it would be a self-help book. I can tell you that right now. But so it all goes back to how hard that I really made things pretty hard for myself the first 3 decades of my life because I was I was clueless. I mean, I was painfully unaware of how powerful my beliefs about myself, especially my subconscious beliefs, were.
Hmm.
I had no knowledge of that. Where I was raised in a rural poverty pocket of Kentucky, nobody talked about that. Nobody talked about mental health. Nobody talked about your
Sure.
subconscious beliefs or your self-esteem or your thoughts. Nobody did that.
It was just the way it was. Yeah.
It's the way it was. And pretty much the world was the way it was, and you were
Hmm.
in it, and you didn't really have any control over what happened to you, really. And my beliefs about myself came from that rural socialization. And women are they're not raised to be powerful in my neck of the woods. I'm 47 years old, so I was born in 1976. And I suppose the culture is a bit more open to empowering women in this day and time,
Sure.
but it
Yeah.
absolutely was not in the 70s and the 80s and, on through the 90s. And by the time I was in elementary school, I had already bought into some disempowering belief systems, and I carried those with me through my teenage years and on into my adulthood. And all my beliefs were rooted in what I refer to in my book as the poverty invaded mindset. And what I mean by that is when a person is raised in an environment that is influenced by poverty, and this can be directly or indirectly. I was not directly raised in poverty, but my parents were.
Okay.
And pretty much all of my family, they were all raised in poverty. And I'm talking about cruel poverty. I'm talking about not having enough of anything. And when a person is raised in an environment like that, they share one commonality. And there's research that shows this. It's not just my opinion, but they expect defeat. And that expectation of defeat sets the bar for everything. So people develop often some people, I'm not saying all people, but some people develop a victim mentality and why try mindset very, very early on in life. And that's a really dangerous way to live. And with that expectation of defeat comes worry. There's always an expectation of worst case scenario, gloom and doom. And that causes you to never be present. You're always living in the future and expecting the next bad thing to happen. And usually people are totally unaware that they're doing this. I was totally unaware, painfully unaware. And expecting the next bad thing causes a person to worry. Worrying is part of my family culture. People even identify themselves with that emotion. They'll say, well, I'm a worrier, like they have no choice in the matter. And I used to be the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, worrying is the same thing as praying for what you don't want.
Mm-hmm.
And when you consistently don't get what you want, you eventually develop a pretty shitty attitude. And that leads to self-loathing. You choose self-loathing over anything better for yourself because subconsciously you don't believe you can obtain the lifestyle that you really want because you got your brother and your sister and your mom and your dad and your cousins and your friends and your school teachers and all these people saying, well, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't make money doing that. And so you just settle. And when you settle and you consistently settle and you just, okay, well, I'm never going to get what I want. Well, that creates a pretty unhappy existence.
Yeah.
And so I started questioning all of this when I was about 28 or 29. And that's what led me to my spiritual journey or my self-empowerment transformation, or really, whatever you want to call it. And I stayed on that path for many, many years. And it led me to where I am today. And in the fall of, I guess it was fall of 2021 or maybe early 2022, that's when I enrolled in the Chopra Center. And that's when I was introduced to Ayurveda.
Okay.
I found Deepak Chopra many, many years ago, but I never really dug into the Ayurveda piece of things.
So can we pause here for a second? Because I'm trying to figure out, like, for those people who are listening, and I totally relate to some of what you're saying, right? Because when you're in your mind and you haven't been exposed to that subconscious and how you can separate it, it's mind blowing. Because when I was introduced to it too, I was like, I wanted to tell everybody about it. And it's funny because I don't know if you experienced this too. If, maybe you can speak to your family and, I'm sure your family were like, what is wrong with you? It's so hard to introduce this concept unless you have like a good teacher, like, Deepak Chopra or, some of these great teachers out there. I'm just trying to understand what helped you when you were 28, 29. Were you listening to like a podcast? Was there something there that opened the light? Like what gave you that opening? So for those who are listening, what happened in that time that helped you kind of open that door?
I found Dr. Wayne Dyer. Like,
Okay.
I stumbled across Wayne Dyer, and I can't remember if I feel like someone gave me one of his books. I go back and forth about that because I cannot remember how I stumbled across that first book.
Uh-huh.
And I read that first book, and then I listened to him talk because he, used to do those specials on PBS.
Yeah.
And what he said, I swear to God, it made more sense to me than anyone or anything ever had. And suddenly I started putting the pieces together,
Right. Yeah.
started realizing what had happened. And what had happened was nobody told me that I was in the driver's seat.
Mm-hmm.
And it was my thoughts. I had created everything that was going
Right.
on, everything. And he really opened the door to everything that I needed, all of the knowledge that I needed to turn things around. And I did. Yeah, it took a long time. It took me
Right.
a long time. I started dabbling in it at 28, 29, and your ego will really fight you
Mm-hmm.
when you start to think differently because the ego wants to protect.
Right.
And so the ego wants to keep you in this familiar territory. And when you start doing the inner work and you start asking questions about yourself, about life, the whole world and the role that you play in it and how the world is supposed to treat you,
Mm-hmm.
you start to see the facts and you stop paying attention to all of those opinions. And when you start looking at the facts, that's when the realizations start coming through and your ego's like, oh, no, 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 no. And so, science shows we have, I don't know, God, 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. And
Yeah.
I heard, you talked about this on one of your podcasts. And yeah, a majority of those are negative, like as much as 90 something percent. And they're
Right.
repetitive thoughts. 95% of those are repetitive thoughts. At that time, I'm going to say that I had probably more thoughts than that on a daily basis. And when I started down this path, those thoughts increased.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was really fighting an inner battle just to get past that. And
Right.
it took a while. It took a while. I was probably, I would say, 32 or 33 before I finally chipped enough away at that ego and tamed that ego down to really start integrating the practices that all these spiritual people and teachers had taught me for my life to really start to change. And when
Yeah.
I did that and I let go, I had to really let go of this identity, that this self identity that I had. And letting go of that involved letting go of a lot of people
Mm.
and a lot of bad habits. Pretty much the life that I knew, I had to step away from it.
Yeah. Like you had to start over.
Mm-hmm.
So you're around 32. So, you're learning. When did you learn about Ayurveda? Was this in the 2021 fast forward
Mm-hmm.
or?
When I enrolled in the Chopra Center, I had heard about Ayurveda. I was very unclear about what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say that when I enrolled in the Chopra Center, I was, because see, in May of 2021, that's when I took the big leap and I stepped into a whole new career, and which is what I'm doing now.
Okay.
And I had been in fundraising for over a decade and had a remarkable run. I mean, I raised $60 million for various nonprofits.
Wow.
And I loved the work. I really did. But I had this burning desire to do what I'm doing now. And so I resigned from that career in May of 2021. And so I'm like, okay, I got a bachelor's degree, I've got a master's degree, but it's totally irrelevant to what I'm doing. And so I need to get some credentials here. So, people will take me seriously. And so I enrolled in the Chopra Center for, to enhance my career. It was for professional reasons. That's not it did enhance my career. I mean, I have 3 certifications from the Chopra Center, which makes me qualified to coach people. But the personal transformation was a really unexpected benefit. And so I'll just tell you that I'll kick off with this. I'm 47, in the thick of menopause, and was in perimenopause before I even knew it, which will rip a woman's health to absolute shreds.
Oh, thanks for telling me. I'm
Oh
so
my
ready for it.
God. I don't understand why people don't start educating us about menopause way early on.
No, it's just, well, now I feel like it's coming out a little bit more on social media, but for the
It
longest
is.
time, I was like, what?
Same.
Yeah.
And so I just want to kick it off by saying I'm in the thick of that. I'm in the thick of menopause and in the best health and best shape I've ever been in.
That's great.
And I attribute most of that to Ayurveda. And I go by the Ayurveda rule, which is 80-20. And so I do the right thing 80% of the time. And then the other 20% of the time is saved for,
I do the same thing with my stuff. Yeah.
There you
got
go.
to.
There
You got to.
I'm going to move over a little bit. I'm not in my podcast studio today, and this sun is coming through my office window, getting a little intense. And so I'm
That's
going to
okay.
move over here in just a minute. So Ayurveda is a 5,000-year-old healing system that originated in ancient India. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And it's a consciousness-based approach to health and healing. It's a holistic approach. And when I say holistic, I'm talking about whole body. You are absolutely in the driver's seat
Mind, body,
of
soul. Is that
your
what you mean?
health.
Mind, body, and soul. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Mind, body, and soul. It's not just the physical aspect of this. And the purpose is to help us return to our natural state of health, balance, and wholeness. And, we come into the world that way, and then we get out and about in society, and it just messes us all up. And so, in Ayurveda, health is not simply just like the absence of disease, but a state of expanded consciousness or awareness that opens us up to just greater well-being all the way around. This is the piece of it that if you're interested in the emotional component, this is the piece of it right here that absolutely changed my life, because I'd never thought about my health this way before. I hadn't. And I did not go into the program, a total rookie. And so I was just, this is what changed. This is what changed my life. So Ayurveda is experiential, meaning that your choices about your experience, that all of your experiences change your body, including your choices about food, your relationships, your sensory experiences, sleep, work, social interactions, and just everything about your daily routine.
Right.
And as you shift your experiences, your biology shifts, because your biology is the metabolism of experience, and our bodies are deeply affected by our moods. And chemical messages tell every cell how we feel. I never knew that. And so in its own way, a cell can be happy or sad, or agitated, or content, or joyous, or despairing. And if you think about it this way, when you're scared, your body responds with the fight, flight, freeze response.
Right.
Okay. Your heart rate picks up, your breathing gets faster, and then there goes the cortisol surge and other stress hormones that ages you. And so most people, and I used to be one of these people, stay in fight, flight, freeze. That sympathetic nervous system is turned up all freaking day. And you become unaware of that. And it's those daily stressors that become chronic. And that's what causes inflammation. everything accumulates and turns into inflammation. Well, inflammation in the body is the root cause of nearly every disease known to man. And so Ayurveda and the 6 pillars of health, all of those work to reduce inflammation.
Yeah.
And when you work every day to reduce inflammation, then you are slowing down the aging process and you are reversing it.
This broadcast is brought to you by the Fit and Pretty Life fitness app. Ladies, are you tired of aging way too fast? Well, we need to get more movement into your day. And one way to do that is getting around 30 minutes a day of movement. The Fit and Pretty Life fitness app can help you with that. These are high intensity, low impact, so you're not going to kill your joints. This includes booty, abs, arms, total body, and legs. Now, I know what you're thinking. I can't do the workouts at home. I have to go to the gym. I have to be around people. Well, for now, for a limited time, you do get 2 live Zoom workouts a week. We work out on Mondays and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can find us in our show notes here from the direct link, or you can find us on Apple Fit and Pretty Life app. We will see you soon. That's well said. Thanks for taking us through that. And I just want to add to that, one of my spiritual coaches, she once told me, we have our own drip pharmacy within us, right? Meaning, like the cortisol can drip through our body, or, the endorphins can drip through our body, so we have the power to do that. And when they said that, I'm just like, oh, it's totally true. Like, we are addicted to cortisol more than anything because it's so addictive. It's like when something good happens in your life and you're like, oh, like I catch myself all the time. Like, this is too good to be true. I want to, it's got something bad's got to happen. So if you're listening to this and you feel like you do that, like you do, and I'm finding myself having to always, you have to practice and coach yourself. You need a coach like Paula, right? To help you, because it's one of those things you have to catch yourself, and it's a very hard thing to really, push through. So have you had experiences with that, like the whole cortisol thing and stopping that? Like I'm still working through that myself.
Oh my goodness. The way that I can't, I can say I overcome it, but it's not, none of us are finished products and things that we don't always anticipate. It's all about how we react to it. And that's how I'm going to say overcome it, still manage it. It's just about managing your emotions, in a healthy way. It's about emotional intelligence. And I used to have zero emotional intelligence. And awareness is the foundation of all change. And
yes.
I just was not aware. I just did not have that level of awareness. I would lose my cool over anything because I had been raised and
to lose your cool
and taught I was supposed to react.
Yeah.
If somebody cut me off in traffic, then I was supposed to get mad at them. I was supposed to curse them. And it was supposed to ruin my day. Well, that's where those stress hormones just go whoosh.
Right.
And then that sympathetic nervous system is turned up. And then that's when your emotions are so strong that things just start to spiral. It's like you start out, your day starts off bad, and then it just gets worse.
And then going back to what you said in the beginning of the whole existence of Ayurveda and how it slows down the aging process, your emotions connect to you at a cellular level, and those cells are feeding into that emotion. Like that is well said. I never even thought about it that way. And so some of the pillars, right? Can we start with some of the pillars, like sleep? Sure. What are some of the practices you have for sleep, or that that we should be practicing besides getting enough of it?
Let's get enough of it, right? I mean, so just in case our listeners are as maybe uninformed as I was when I started studying Ayurveda, I've always been a person that really has to have their sleep. I can't go without sleep. I just can't. It absolutely destroys me. I have to have sleep. And so during deep sleep, that's when our body releases that accumulated stress and physical toxins, balances hormones, strengthens our immune system, and it repairs and regenerates cells and tissues. And so if you're sleep deprived, you are more likely to have a weakened immune system. I used to stay sick all the time. That's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
And you have chronic inflammation. And of course, what I said before, inflammation is at the root cause of nearly every disease known to
100%.
man. Yeah. And so sleep, I mean, that's number one. That's number one on the list. Absolutely. And
How many
so
hours do you get? Like, I know I've read sleeping books too, just based on like metabolism. Less than, they say about 6.5 hours is like the minimum. Like 7 hours is usually like the golden rule before your health starts. You know, they've done studies, but have you heard differently or the same?
that's about the same. 7 to 9 hours is ideal.
Mm-hmm.
And when I get like 9 hours of uninterrupted sleep, like
Yeah, the uninterrupted is the key there, right?
exactly.
It's hard to do
And
sometimes.
oh my goodness, I swear I could climb my Mount Everest when I get
Yeah.
9 hours of sleep. But I function pretty well on 7 to 8 as long as it's uninterrupted sleep. Now I have a lot of things to improve my sleep patterns and my quality of sleep. And it just goes back to reducing inflammation.
Uh-huh.
It makes a huge difference. And that's what I preach all the time. Do something to reduce that inflammation. That will absolutely improve your sleep quality. Now, what you do before bedtime is significant.
Mm-hmm.
And and I often tell people I do talk about conscious creation a lot. I mean, a lot of my work is about conscious creation, and I use the term conscious creation because social media has turned manifestation into something gimmicky and trendy, and it's not gimmicky, and it's not trendy. It's timeless, and
Mm-hmm.
it works. And so those last few minutes before you go to sleep are so important because if you spend that time lying in the bed, worrying, anticipating what's going to happen, dreading the next day, if you're thinking about somebody that you're mad at, and you go to sleep feeling like that,
Yeah.
well, that's seeping that's seeping into your subconscious.
Right.
And so those are two things that I always tell people to work on. And it's not easy for everybody. It wasn't easy for me. I had to get into the habit of doing it. But once you get into the habit of doing it and you reap the benefits, you feel so much better. Then that's
Yeah.
your motivation to continue those practices.
And now for a commercial break. Listen up. The prolonged fast mimicking diet. This isn't just another diet. This is science. And what makes prolonged different from any other fast is that your body thinks it's fasting, but you still get to enjoy rich food. And unlike traditional fasting, you won't lose muscle, just the extra weight. Prolong is a 5-day plan based on 20 years and over $36 million in research and development. Experience 5 life-changing benefits, including effective weight loss, boosted energy, cellular rejuvenation, improved metabolic health, and better control over your cravings. All this while nourishing your body. And get excited because we have a 20% off promo code using Erica20. Just visit the link below and we'll see you soon. And I just want to pause here for a second because you're talking about what you think about before you go to bed, right? And that's another awareness thing. Most of the time, you know, unless you're listening to this podcast right now, think about when you hit the bed tonight. You know, maybe you watch TV, maybe you're scrolling through your phone, but as soon as you shut everything down, the one thing that I started to do that helps me is think about 3 things that I'm grateful for. If you can't think of 3, think at least 1. So those last things that you think about before you kind of settle into your bed is at least on a positive frequency. And of course, those other thoughts are still going to try to come in there, but it makes me feel good. So I don't know if you have any other like practical tips about the mindset, but that's something that I've been practicing that's been helping me.
That is a great practice, and I use that one myself.
Right.
And I'll just kind of piggyback on something that you just said. There are some times that people can't always get into that felt sense of gratitude.
Yeah.
But if you can just think about your breath and be grateful for your breath, you can always be grateful for your breath, because without your breath, you'd be toast.
Yeah. That's a good one. Your
And
heart beats on its own. I say that in my class, my fitness classes and Pilates. I say that. Be quiet and listen to your heart.
mhm,
Right? Like that's a big one for me too.
that's a big one, because you stop what you're doing and you connect with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people just, go about life, and they never really connect with their self. And that is really, really, really important. And it will take you to the silence too. It'll take you out of activity and into silence. And the breath work before bedtime is something that I really do try to be diligent about.
Mm-hmm.
And a really good in Ayurveda, it is called pranayam, but it's just breath work. It's connecting with your breath. It's enhancing awareness and consciousness through putting your focus on your breath.
Sure.
Now, you can only think one thought at a time. And if you are focused on conscious breathing, then that will absolutely take your mind off of other things. And when those thoughts start to creep in, there's no need to really force them out, because that's normal.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking thoughts is normal. We want to do that. If we're not having thoughts, then we're flatlining. So thoughts are a good
Right.
thing. And so when those thoughts start to come in, the best thing to do is just let them go. Don't judge them. Observe them.
Right.
And if it gets to be too hectic, just say, not now. You can talk to your
Yeah. Talk to your
someone.
thoughts.
Not
Get
now.
away. No.
Not now. Right. Not now.
Yeah.
And just keep focusing on the breath. And there's a breathing technique called coherence breathing that is a really good one to do at night.
Coherence.
Coherence breathing.
Okay. I'll have
Mhm.
to look that one up.
And I've heard some people refer to it as coherent breathing too. But you breathe, you use your diaphragm, not your chest.
Right.
And a really good way to do it is to put your hand on your chest and your hand on your belly.
Yeah.
And when you inhale, your belly is going to come out, like you're going to fill it up like a balloon.
Mm-hmm.
And you will inhale for like a count of 4. Just And then when you exhale, you slowly blow it out through your mouth, like a count of 5 to 6.
So a little bit longer on the exhale.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just a little slower, you're just really slowing that breath down. And your belly should just, you should feel it going in and then back out, and going in and back out. And that will turn up that parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest system. And it will turn down that fight, flight, freeze response, and it will help you go to sleep. And it will also help you go to sleep with maybe a better attitude if you get in the bed and your attitude might be not the best.
Right.
And
It'll
it
essentially calm your
calms
nervous
down.
system, calm your nervous system down.
Yeah, gets rid of that frantic, chaotic energy, and helps you be a little bit more grounded. And I mean, really, truly, who can go to sleep when they're worried and frantic? It's
No.
not going to happen.
No.
And the breathing will let the body know that it's, you're calming down, and that way you can turn on that parasympathetic nervous system. And the more you do this, your body knows, like you're
Right.
reprogramming your brain and your body to, hey, we're switching to calm here, and then you get used to it, and it becomes a habit that serves you well. The lying in bed at night worrying about the next day is never going to serve anybody well, ever.
Yeah. And I do want to just throw in there, because I know a lot of people who suffer from not being able to go to sleep. I've never had that issue. I don't know. Maybe it's working out that helps with that. And I know we're going to talk about movement, but the worry part, the one thing that I've learned over the years is that worry is basically you have no control when you're worrying, right? So the one thing that I would just want to throw out there that might help someone out there is taking action. So if you're like, I'm worrying about this, whatever it is, like, how am I going to pay for my bills? Like, think about an action to replace that worry. Like, I might not know how to figure it out, but I'm going to talk to my girlfriend tomorrow and maybe she can come, we can talk about ways that I can, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like instead of worrying, because it'll just circle and circle, it's like you need to replace that worry with an action item. So
Yep.
that's just for those of you who are worrying a lot.
And I used to be that person. And it absolutely consumed me. The
That's a
worry.
cortisol on like, it's
Oh my
just on
God.
autopilot. Worrying. Yeah. So
Yes.
don't do that. And it gives you belly fat. We don't want that.
We want that. And when I worried a lot, I was, let me see, I got up to 204 pounds.
Wow, really? So do you attribute that to the cortisol?
I attributed to everything that I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that I was doing. It was
It's
just
all
like
connected.
a
Yeah.
self-sabotage freaking roller coaster. And I just want to bring that up because the way you feel absolutely contributes to the way you look. And you could take one look at me and see that I felt terrible.
Oh,
Yeah. And
yeah.
worry played a huge role in that. And the way that I interrupted the worry this day and time, I don't, if I don't worry. If I worry, it's for a split second. It doesn't linger. But I interrupted it by looking at the facts. And if you look at the facts,
Yeah, that's a good one too.
yeah, you can interrupt it real quick because usually what you're worrying about either hasn't happened.
Or it's not as bad as you think it is,
Right. And nothing's been decided. There might be some uncertainty, which causes a lot of people to worry. But when you can find possibilities and opportunities in uncertainty, then you can interrupt that worry because a lot of times something won't be decided, and uncertainty is an emotion that I used to be really uncomfortable with, and it was interchangeable with worrying. And
I think most of us are, though. Like, status quo is way better than, not knowing what's going to happen. I think that's just natural for us.
Exactly. Yeah, because hey, it might work out in your favor. Is that possible? Sure it is. Sure it is.
Yeah.
So I started to shift my mindset to that way of thinking, and it served me well. It served me well.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to meditation. This is one of my favorites, and I need to do more of this, and I am trying to. My spiritual coach is she's big on that, and I'm trying to. Again, I'm big on working out. That's never been a problem for me. Meditation has been, it's almost like one of those things where you don't see the results right away. At least this is my personal experience. And then once you start doing it and learning about it, you realize, how did you ever do without it? So
Right.
Can you give us for people, those who are not meditating, give us a reason why to do it?
Oh my goodness. So, meditation it's backed by science. It does not have to be as rigid or structured as
Yeah, that's a good point. You don't have to be like what you
right.
think. Yeah.
You don't have to sit a certain way. You do not have to stop your thoughts. There are various meditation techniques. I had to experiment with oh my goodness, a couple of dozen before I landed on one that I really loved.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like exercise. If you're consistent, you're going to reap the benefits.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to find an exercise that you love to do, or you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
And you don't want to do something every single day that you hate, because all that's going to do is stir up emotions that create an energetic frequency that matches the stuff that you don't want.
Right.
And so meditation needs to be something that you like to do. You need to find a technique that you really, really enjoy. And it does not feel like a chore to me at all. But in the beginning it did, because I hadn't landed on a technique that I really loved. The number one benefit of meditation, and why everybody should do some form of meditation every single day, is it reduces inflammation in the entire physiology.
Yeah.
That's the number one benefit. And that trickles down to impact literally everything. And I've got a study here from Deepak,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to share a couple of things. So, and like I said, it's backed by, meditation is backed by science. So, and I also want to say, let people know, you don't reap the benefits of meditation during meditation. You reap the benefits when you are out and about in activity. You don't reap the benefits in silence. It's like you're creating them when you are going within silence. But it's when you are out and about operating in society is when you reap the benefits.
Mm-hmm.
And after you've been meditating for a while and you've been consistent with it, then you'll start noticing these subtle shifts. And at first, it's subtle. You may notice it, or other people around you may notice it and say something. But when you notice it, you will be more motivated and inspired, and you're going to feel better to keep meditating. And when you keep meditating, then those subtle changes turn into monumental changes.
Right.
So, research shows that people who meditate regularly develop less hypertension, less likely to develop heart disease, less likely to be anxiety, and any other stress-related illness. In my opinion, stress can be connected to almost
everything, all the bad stuff. Yeah.
All the bad stuff. I mean, there's absolute truth in the old saying, stress will kill you. It will. Meditation releases those toxins that are caused by stress. So a recent study conducted at the Chopra Center found that after just a few days of meditation, people experienced a 2 to 3-fold suppression of gene activity associated with viral infection and wound healing. There were also beneficial changes in the genes associated with the risk for Alzheimer's disease. And the most astonishing result was that the meditators experienced a dramatic increase in the anti-aging activity of telomerase. And that's
yeah. Telomeres?
Telomeres.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The smaller those are, the faster you age. So that's great.
Yes. Yes. And so telomerase, I think I'm pronouncing that the right way, is an enzyme.
I must be pronouncing it wrong.
I know these words like
Yeah, that's okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. And it replenishes and repairs the telomeres. And of course, those are the caps at the end of our chromosomes that protect our genes. And so the longer the telomeres are, then the greater longevity and health that a person experiences. And keep in mind, those benefits happened within a few days. And so by meditating daily, even if it's just for a few minutes, you're creating immediate long-term benefits for your health and well-being.
Now for a commercial break. So I want to ask you, when is the last time you had a great tasting protein bar that wasn't full of garbage? I want to tell you, I gave up on protein bars a while ago because of this reason. They were either 1, full of garbage, or 2, they just tasted like cardboard. Okay. So I was really surprised when I was introduced to Nugo bars. All right. So Nugo bars are bars that don't contain bad oils, no sugar alcohols, and they taste really, really good. Okay. And they have protein to boot. So I love these protein bars when I need like a quick fix, when I need something sweet that will give me some satiety. Honestly, these are really good with a little coffee in the morning. Forget the donuts, take a bite of these. And now for a limited time, if you go to nugonutrition.com/fitandpretty, that's NUGO nutrition.com/fitandpretty, FITNPRETTY, you'll get 50% off 12 bars. So normally this box is $30. You'll get this entire box of 12 bars that includes 2 dark chocolate pretzels with sea salt, 2 chocolate chip. You get 2 peanut butter cup. You get 2 mint chocolate chip, which is my favorite. You also get 2 dark mocha chocolates. And your last 2 is going to be your dark chocolate almond with sea salt. So it's limit 1 per customer. Hurry while supplies last. So how often do you meditate? Do you meditate and do you do it in the morning? I know that's, from what I understand, is the best practice because, but maybe wherever you can fit it into your day, obviously it's kind of like working out, the best schedule is the schedule that works for you.
Right.
How do you do it?
I do twice a day, in the morning and in the evening. And I have a habit of that when I was practicing TM, transcendental meditation, and I did transcendental meditation for many, many years, and it served me well. I mean, the hype is true, and it's also backed by science. You hear a lot of celebrities talk about TM, but when I enrolled at the Chopra Center, primordial sound meditation is the practice that I was trained in, and so I thought, well, if I'm going to be training people in this meditation, and I need to probably try the practice and adopt it. And I almost felt like I was cheating on my TM when I first started with the primordial sound meditation. But I started using primordial sound meditation, and the daily practice is the same as TM. And you meditate in the morning and then again in the evening. Now, a best practice is 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the evening. Sometimes I do that 30 minutes.
Wow, 30 minutes?
That's a lot. It takes a lot of time. I usually aim for 15 to 20 minutes in the morning and 15 to 20 minutes in the evening. And when you're meditating like that twice a day, you gain absolute control over your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have control over your emotions, you can rule the world.
Is that a guided one? Like, do you listen to something, or is that just something you speak to it, or is it, are you in silence? I'm just curious what your method what the method is.
It's silence. You go to the silence and you use a silent mantra. It's a silent Sanskrit mantra.
So you just have it in your mind.
Yes, you just repeat it. You just repeat your mantra. And what I do is I start each meditation with the 4 soul questions. And those are, who am I? What do I want? What is my purpose? What am I grateful for?
Okay. Yeah, those are good.
And so I silently repeat those questions to myself. And then I go into silently repeating my Sanskrit mantra. Now, the mantras in primordial sound meditation are based on so primordial sounds are the sounds of nature. And this is a very, very sophisticated meditation technique. And so everything in creation is made of a sound or a vibration, even the universe itself. And thousands of years ago, the ancient sages recognized that the sound of the universe changed periodically throughout the lunar cycle. Mm-hmm. And they documented 108 different vibrations of the universe, each of which relates to the position of the moon. Those are the primordial sounds.
Okay.
And so, knowing the time, date, and location of a person's birth, we use a Vedic mathematics calculator to see what the position of the moon was at that moment. And that allows us to identify the corresponding sound of the universe. And that becomes your primordial sound mantra.
Oh, okay.
So it's your personal mantra. Yeah.
So everybody, in that practice, everybody has that. Yeah. We might have to do another one. So that's fascinating. I had no idea that existed. I'm thinking, I've just been through guided meditations, but not to the fact to the to the person. So that's fascinating that's a thing. I didn't even know that. So,
Yeah.
okay. But for those of us maybe who, Paul, I'm sure you could introduce that to people, but if maybe, like a more practical one, I know I have a twin sister, and like when I go and visit her, she's like, let's
Oh,
do
yeah.
meditation. And so, yeah, we'll just sit on the floor. She's just like, let's sit on the carpet. And then she'll just pick a YouTube. Like she's got all these like favorite ones, right? You
Mhm.
can be as basic as that. Just find, there's so many on YouTube,
Yes.
and then I got my sage here. So I really do like the sage. I did that
Mhm.
before we came on. There's something about the scent of sage that really kind of pulls me into that relaxation. So I don't know if
Oh,
you do any
yeah.
of those extra things, but
Oh, yeah.
sage is
Oh, yeah.
awesome.
But yeah, meditation can be very, very simple. And you can even do your own version of primordial sound meditation that doesn't involve getting trained and getting your own mantra. You can use a universal Sanskrit mantra, and it's so hum. And you just repeat that silently in your mind. So hum,
So hum. Okay.
so hum, HUM.
Okay.
And every time those thoughts, if those thoughts start to crowd your mind, and you just gently choose that mantra.
Okay.
And so that's a technique that anyone can experiment with without spending one penny. And if you don't like it and you see that you need some guided meditations, they're everywhere. I've got tons of them on my YouTube, on my
Yeah.
website that I created. And so it's just what you choose to do, and it doesn't have to be a tremendous amount of effort. It should be effortless. And if it frustrates you, stop
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
try something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the key. Sometimes it might not just work the first time and sometimes it's someone's voice too. Like I've
Mm-hmm.
done the guided ones. I'm like, ooh, I don't like that voice. I mean, we all have a preference. I'm like, I like sometimes like guys calming voice, sometimes the girl's voice, maybe it's too high pitched, whatever it is, like just find
Mm-hmm.
something or, the 5 minute ones are good too, just to get your feet wet in it. And,
Oh, yeah,
so,
absolutely.
okay. So let's move on to movement and mind body coordination. Just
Yeah,
pause for a
this
second. Are we
one,
okay on the time? Are you
oh, yeah,
okay?
I'm good.
Okay. I just
Yeah.
want to keep rolling because this is great. This
Oh,
is
yeah,
great. We're more in
I'm
depth than
good.
I thought, but this is perfect. Okay.
Well, it's a lot of information.
It is. It's like, oh, we're only on number 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, and the others, I won't go into like as much detail as I did about the sleep and the meditation. Those are just two really important ones. I
No,
mean, they're
those are
all
good. Yeah.
very important, and so movement and mind body coordination. Our bodies are meant to move. They're meant to move. And regular exercise is the absolute, it is a key to health and longevity. And the risk of disease rises sharply as we age. And if you sit around all the time and you don't move, then you are going to find yourself in a very frail body as you get older. And I don't want that. I don't want that at all.
Yeah.
And in this article that I have here that Deepak published, he says that drastic inactivity eventually leads to a 30% higher mortality rate for men and double the mortality rate for women.
Of course.
That's
It's always
how
double for women. What the heck?
I know. I mean, hormonally speaking, you
Yeah.
really got the shaft.
Mm.
And I trace all of it back to that. And so it's just important to find a physical activity that you really enjoy doing and do it every day, say 30 minutes a day and just get into the habit of doing that. And it's just like meditation. The more consistent you are, then becomes a habit, and it becomes natural, just like getting up in the mornings, brushing your teeth. It's just part of your day.
Yeah. And
And
I just want to throw a little quote in here. I heard this once from my chiropractor and it stuck with me and it's going to stick with you. When you rest, you rust. Like, and he's a chiropractor, so he says that with the joints and stuff. But of course,
well,
rest is important to a certain extent. But if you're only resting, no movement. When you rest,
mhm.
you rust. I mean, that goes with like your joints too, your bone density. I mean, I've talked about it in many, many episodes. So if you need some lessons on working out and stuff like that, please just look at some of the other, anti-aging broadcasts we had. But anyway, if you had more to share on the What type of movement would you say in the Ayurvedic practice is recommended?
Yoga.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah,
Duh.
yoga. Yoga is definitely the go-to
Do you
movement
do a lot of
for.
yoga?
I try to do yoga at least once a week. I've recently gotten into qigong, and
Qigong.
I had qigong. Yeah, it's
I haven't
an
heard about that one.
ancient Chinese healing modality. And this guy that I had on my podcast earlier in the year, his name is Joe Moody. He introduced me to qigong, and qigong incorporates a lot of yoga movements.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to incorporate that at least one day a week. But lifting weights is really what has helped me.
Yeah.
Yoga helps with my flexibility, and it helps with mind body coordination. When you're doing yoga, there are physical benefits, but there are also mental and emotional benefits.
Sure.
And because it calms your mind down and you're focused on doing those movements and you're not focused on doing anything else. And flexibility is another huge key to longevity and good health. And it's all about finding something that you enjoy doing and try to do it
I
every day.
agree. I agree. And also, I'm throwing this out there. I shared this on another podcast, but the whole walking, I walk every day with my dog. I obviously do hot Pilates with strength training, like you were talking about with weights.
Hmm.
But walking is one of those underrated things that, number one, we don't talk about, I don't know if we talk about social connection, but I think, walking, you get, connected to people in the neighborhood. Like I have a dog. I mean, I've met everybody in the neighborhood. Like I've been here for a few years, but like, it's great, walking, socializing, get a dog. That's my point. Like
Yeah.
dogs are great, but,
And getting fresh air. I mean, that is
yeah, the
so
fresh air
good.
too. There's so much with the whole walking outside.
Yeah.
If you
And
can
if
with the
you're
weather, I don't know.
really, if you're in a bad mood, if you think about it, has taking a walk ever made it worse?
I know.
Right?
I
It's
would say
just
no one ever
another.
says they're glad they didn't work out. I say that all the time because the worst part is getting to the gym or putting on the recording or whatever you're doing with the workout.
Hmm.
But when you're done, you're like, why wouldn't I want to do this? My endorphins are out. You feel so good. And everybody's always
Always feel better.
smiling, always.
Hmm. Always feel better. And for our listeners, I have to share, I was really intimidated
Yeah.
by working out in a gym or even
Hmm.
on my own. When I gained all that weight. I went from a size six to a 16 in a year, and that had a lot to do with a very traumatic situation that I went through, and lost control of my emotions and lost control of my health. And when I got back on track, I didn't carry the weight around too long, about 2 or 3 years. And when I was 25, I got back on track and I lost the weight. And I started exercising really for the first time in my life. And I was so intimidated. And I look back on that and I'm like, why was I so intimidated? Because it totally takes you out of your comfort zone if you've never done it before.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to start somewhere.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm so glad I did. Oh my God.
I know. And sometimes you just need a coach or someone to help too. Like, don't feel like you have to be in it alone. I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, that's why coaches exist. I think you need someone to just help you get started. And then eventually, you're like probably in your experience. I don't know if you had a coach or anything or what steps you took, but I've been through that with some students too. Like they're scared, and they don't want to be, I was teaching in the studio. Now I teach from home. I do the Zooms. So that makes it better because people be in their house and they don't feel like they can put themselves off camera. So I totally get it. So if you're listening and you're thinking about working out, just try different types of things and reach out to a friend. Maybe just do something to kind of reduce that anxiety.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. And big gyms can be intimidating.
yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. I can see people are
Yeah.
looking around. You got the guys, and I remember
Mhm.
just that in like when I was in college and stuff. I'm like, this is so annoying. I just want to do some squats without, it's just like
People
people are
watching.
always looking at people. It's the gym.
Right.
It's weird. You think they're looking at you. They're probably not. I don't know. But
Yeah.
anyway, if you're self conscious to begin with, it's not a good place to be because you're just thinking about that.
Exactly. And in this
So,
day and time, we have access to YouTube.
oh, right. Yeah.
So many exercise videos on there. I mean, you can do it right in the comfort of your own home. And if you screw up or you think you look stupid, it doesn't matter because nobody's watching.
So true. Okay. So let's move on to, oh, this one is my favorite, healthy emotions.
Healthy emotions. And, I touched on that earlier
Yeah.
when I talked about, our body is just deeply affected by our moods.
Right.
And living in a state of chronic stress, it leads to increased inflammation in the body, and that leads to the development of chronic illness. But when you cultivate healthy emotions and self-healing and self-regulation in your body, then you improve health overall. And like it took a long time for me to get to a place where I really, really, truly encompassed healthy emotions. And I had to do a lot of inner work to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's different. Everybody is different. I was in a bit of an extreme case, in my opinion. Total product of my socialization.
Yeah.
Not everybody was raised like that. But no matter who you are, where you grew up, how you were raised, you've got trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has trauma. And until we face that head on and release it, it has control over us. And as long as it has control, we can't fully embrace those healthy emotions. It's like worry and joy can't coexist. They cannot coexist under the same roof. And so if you are consumed with worry, then there's no way that you are
Yeah.
going to be happy. Awareness is the first step to getting there. I had to become aware. I had never even heard about emotional trauma. I associated trauma with physical stuff.
Right.
And when I put the pieces together, I saw this, I think she was called a body talk specialist. And she asked me, she said, do you have a lot of trauma? And my answer was, well, I was in a car accident when I was 16, because I associated,
Trauma with like a physical, yeah, pain.
right, had never thought about emotional trauma. And then when I started educating myself about all of that, I realized that I was ridden with it. And when
Yeah.
I started releasing it, I was able to fully and freely forgive people, including myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the hardest part.
And yeah, that's the hardest part. And I was able to do that through empathy. And I wouldn't have been able to be like truly, authentically empathetic if I hadn't worked to release that trauma. And so
Yeah.
that's my number one tip with living with healthy emotions. I mean, all of that garbage didn't get in our subconscious mind overnight, and it can take a while to release it. And it's really, really a good idea to approach doing that incrementally, not just like think you're just going to get rid of it all at
Right.
once.
It's like losing weight. You're not going to lose a pound in a day or 10 pounds in one day. It's just, it is a gradual thing. And I just want to add here too, the one thing, I think my sister told me this once and it's just stuck with me too. It's like the saying, don't be so hard on yourself is one of the best things you can tell yourself. And I tell that to friends sometimes because we're so hard on ourselves that it causes those negative emotions because we talk to ourselves more than anybody, in our mind, and I tell my students that too. It's like, you talk to yourself the most. So what are you telling yourself all the time? And it always just think, stop being so hard on yourself. I tell myself that pretty much a lot of times during the week because I think we are hard on ourselves, especially if you're like looking to just do things a lot in your life, and it sounds like, you're successful at what you do. And I know I try to do a lot of things, and I just catch myself. So that's just one tip I want to give to people. Don't be so hard on yourself, because that really, that causes emotions in your body, whether you realize it or not. And then the other thing is, with healthy emotions, do you have any practical tips with like pattern interrupters? Do you do any of those?
I want to share. I want to share this with you and our listeners, because if I would have known this little tidbit of brain science here, when I first started my journey, it would have helped me to be a lot easier on myself. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're wired, like scientifically, toward negativity bias. And negativity bias comes from this little almond-shaped thing in our brains called the amygdala.
Mm-hmm.
And the amygdala is part of our default mode network. So there's a psychologist and a happiness researcher. His name is Rick Hansen, and he reported that the amygdala is primed to find the negative. This part of the brain uses 2/3 of its neuronal power to search for bad news. What that means for us is it's way easier for us to believe the bad stuff over the good. We're wired to do that.
Why is that? Why wouldn't we be flipped around?
God. We inherited it from our ancestors. That's where it comes from.
Maybe it's protection. Is it protection from?
Exactly. Because they had to stay in fight, flight, freeze.
Right. The whole tiger's coming after us type thing, right?
Right. And so we're behaving that way day to day, and there are no tigers coming after us, but we're still acting like that.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that negative self-talk can be traced back to that. And you can have a lot of compassion for yourself when you realize that it's really not your fault that you're thinking like that.
Right.
It's only your fault when you let your ego consume you, and you believe that those thoughts are who you actually are when they're not who you are.
Well said. Thanks for bringing that study up. And, I am going to throw in some of my practical tips too. And I've mentioned this before in some other episodes, but like the whole movement thing, that's a great pattern interrupter, right? So go for a walk. We kind of said that. Do a workout, phone a friend, a good friend. You got to assess like who's going to put you in that higher energy level, right? They either,
exactly.
You don't want to bring you down. So you got to assess those friendships too. Number 3, put on some music. I think music is so underrated, and, pick a good song. Don't put a like sad one on,
Right.
So those are my 3 tips. I think journaling is one. I know some people are big on journaling. I've never been big on it. I don't know. I just, but I know some people are big on that. So I just want to throw that one out there. So those are the 4. So.
And those are great. And I use pretty much all those on a daily basis. The solfeggio frequencies are great to turn those on.
Yeah.
If your mood is a bit off. I mean, there's healing through sound. That's an Ayurveda practice, healing through sound. And so you nailed it with the music. That is a big one. And it's about being aware. It's just like catching yourself when you see your mood going, ooh.
Right.
Instead of letting it snowball, hey, let me interrupt it.
Yeah.
And that just trickles down to number 5, and that's self-care. I mean, every single thing that we've been talking about is it's self-care. It's stress relief. It's decreasing inflammation.
Yeah.
It's everything.
Getting your hair done. Can we talk about like getting your hair done, getting your nails, stuff that makes you feel pretty?
Right.
Whatever that is, in your definition.
Right. Looking the way you want to look, and saying yes to, in my opinion, self-care boils down to this one thing: saying yes to what you want to do,
right,
and saying no what you don't want to do.
Right.
Saying yes, oh my God, to all this stuff you don't want to do.
The people pleasing and the whole, the codependency and all that stuff. I feel like I'm pretty good at that now. I mean, before, college years, just trying to just do everything to please people. And yeah, I think it's one of those things. And women have told me that when I was younger, like, just wait until you get older, you start not to care what people think, and it's taken some time, but yeah, I feel like I'm getting there.
It's a tough one too, not caring about what people think.
Yeah, it's still a struggle. Yeah. Being your own, even belief system and all that stuff, So,
Hmm.
but that's who we
Yeah.
are, right? To be your authentic self is just to speak the truth.
Hmm.
And so our last one, which is my favorite too, is the optimal nutrition. What are the things that in the Ayurveda diet is recommended? No meat, right? It's probably plant-based.
Mainly plant-based, and I'm going to tell you something that Deepak brought up during a lecture, and I have not eaten a lot of meat since
Yeah.
because I hadn't thought about it this way. But he kept talking about the way that food is prepared and non-violence.
Hmm.
He's always preaching non-violence,
Oh, yeah, I know.
right?
I know. I
And
gave up
that
cows a long
got
time,
me.
beef. I gave up beef and uh, pork a long time ago.
Me
I still
too.
do the fish and chicken stuff. I still feel bad for the chickens. I always say that, but the cows are so beautiful. They're so big. They're just gorgeous. I don't know, but it does smell good. I'm just gonna say, like anytime someone's barbecuing, I still smell the meat. It smells good.
I know. And a good steak, oh my God. But I just started, and I don't make a big deal out of it. Like I said earlier, and you said earlier, 80-20. If I want to, if my husband orders a steak and I bite up, I say, just give me a little bite of that.
Yeah.
I don't make a big deal about it. But 80% of the time, I do try to eat plant-based.
Uh huh.
And according to Ayurveda, we should have all the colors of the rainbow on our plate.
That's good. Yeah, I try to do that.
I try to do that. And if you do that, then you are more than likely eating, a variety of your fresh whole foods. And because if you
Are they
take
big
a
on
look at it,
spices too, like turmeric? I do a lot of turmeric for my skin,
yes,
but
turmeric is great for your skin.
and inflammation. Yeah.
Yes. And if you look at the colors of a fast food meal,
It doesn't even taste good anymore. When you start to eat healthy again, like, oh
I
my
was
God,
getting ready to say that.
it tastes so disgusting.
It
Like,
makes me sick.
I mean, it was quite a while ago. My daughter wanted like Burger King and it just tasted, I was like, let me try one. I'm like, it tasted like cardboard. Like there's no taste. I don't know
Awesome.
how we used to think it was so good when I was a kid. I was like,
Me
so
too.
good. Don't get me wrong. I love the smell of fries and something about McDonald's fries. I mean, I haven't had them in a long time, but
Hmm.
those are, those
Those
are bad
fries
for
are
you, but they're
so
good.
freaking good. I know.
Yeah.
I
I
know.
mean, it's science technology to make you want to just eat it and you just don't get filled up. I mean, that's just classic American
Hmm.
obesity right there.
It is, and you feel lethargic
Oh,
afterward.
yeah, you feel horrible afterward.
Feel horrible, and you're not full, and your
You're not
digestion is
full. I think
screwed
there's no
up.
satiety. I'm like, I could eat a whole like bag of these fries and still want more,
Yeah,
you
and you just
know?
want to keep going.
Yeah.
And Ayurveda is all about improving your digestion, and fast
Hmm.
food is filled with so many additives.
Oh, yeah. The stuff, you don't
It's
even
as
know
bad
it. I
as
don't
smoking a
even,
pack of cigarettes. What's in that food?
I know.
And so
Yeah, your
it's
body doesn't
like,
break it down too. That's for those of you who are like, I'm sure everybody knows about this, but just so you guys know, like the foreign stuff, your body doesn't like to break it down, and it doesn't know where to go. That's why I always explain to people too, is like those chemicals were not made to be broken down. So where do you think they're going? Your body's confused. It's like, why do you think people have gut issues?
exactly,
So
exactly.
anyway, so clean food, colors
As
of the rainbow,
much as possible. Yeah.
mostly plant, and
Plant-based. Colors of the rainbow. And one thing that this has led to with me is it's created an awareness to how many processed foods I was eating. And
oh,
when I
okay.
thought I was eating healthy, I wasn't. I wasn't.
What
And
were
so
you
I
eating, like
tried,
ready make stuff?
right.
Like soups and stuff? Like those are terrible. Like the canned stuff? Ugh.
Terrible. It's terrible. I mean, rule of thumb, if it's frozen, usually or in a can, you're not going down the right path. And so,
Yeah.
and I was just really kind of clueless about that. And so I do my best to stay away from processed foods. Processed foods are just stripped of vital nutrients. They contain a lot of sugar. And like you said, we don't digest those things well. And so when we're not digesting properly, guess what happens? Inflammation. And that's the thing that we really need to
Yeah.
keep in the forefront of our minds is what am I doing here? Am I creating inflammation or am I reducing it? And so I'll, you know, it's self-discipline. I keep that question in my head, and if I do this, am I creating inflammation or am I reducing it? Because I don't want inflammation. I don't want any part of it.
I know. I
And so
know.
the instant gratification piece, I just try to stay away from that instant gratification
Yeah.
and just look at the long-term benefit. And it doesn't mean it takes self-discipline, but the rewards are truly magnificent.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
Yeah. You got to have your why too. Just remember that. So,
Exactly.
anything else on the Ayurveda? Otherwise, I want to just give you an opportunity. Maybe we'll bring you back for your book because that would be the whole another episode. But when did that? Your book is called Thought Snob, and was that just launched?
Yeah, it launched August 11th on Amazon. And
Oh, good for you! Look at that. I
yeah,
love the
yeah,
name.
yeah, it's available in three formats: paperback, Kindle, and audio. And
Did you do the voiceover? Did you?
I did. I
Oh,
narrated
I'm gonna do that one. I'll do it with
I
my dog
have
walks then.
we have a recording studio in our basement, and I've got a whisper room.
Nice.
And
Is
yeah, and
that
I
your podcasting room then?
yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I'm not recording in the podcast studio today. I'm in my office because my husband and my stepdaughter are going to the University of Louisville football game, and I don't know how to operate all that equipment in that studio. And so
Oh, gotcha, gotcha. No, this
he
works
has to
fine.
be
Your
here
your
in
voice is
order.
good too. Do you have a mic on? I didn't even ask.
No, I mean, yeah, it's I'm using the computer audio. I think,
Oh, it just sounds
yeah,
perfect.
yeah. Well, my husband did something to it. I mean,
Oh,
he's
of
like
course
the
he did.
tech guy.
I know, that's awesome. Okay, so a little bit about your book, just so you know, this has been a fantastic discussion. Do you want
Yes.
to let's
Yeah.
just what does a snob stand for? Because that was like what I was like, what is she talking about?
Well, I mean, historically speaking, I mean, like the definition of a snob is, something, a person that, nobody likes or wants to be or wants to be around. But when I started making all of the changes that I made in my late 20s and early 30s, the people that I was around called me a stuck-up snob. And
Oh,
because I wanted better, I
yeah.
wanted better, and they didn't like that version of me because that version of
I could
me
see that. Yeah.
couldn't be controlled, and very unenlightened, toxic group of people. And so when I sat down to write a book, I thought about all of that. And so this book is basically about really seeing the opposite of everything that you've been taught. And so that's where Thought Snob came in, because Thought Snob is a good thing. It's an archetype, it's a lifestyle, it's something you aspire to be. And so SNOB is an acronym that stands for See New Objective Beliefs. And that goes back to what I've said earlier in our conversation about if you look at the facts 10 times out of 10, you're going to see that what you're thinking isn't true.
Yeah.
What people have told you about yourself isn't true, because people like to come in and act like they're a big expert on you when you are the only person that knows what's best for you.
Yeah.
That's where Thought Snob came from.
Perfect.
Yeah. And it's the opposite of the concept of a thought slob. And slob stands for self-loathing overrides better. And
Mm.
so it's like before, when I was a thought slob, I was self-loathing, never chose better, transitioned over into thought
From
snob.
slob to snob.
Snob, that's it, right there. That's it.
Oh, that's perfect. Okay, perfect. So again, there's three ways to get that book, right? Kindle, regular paperback, or is that hardcover?
Paperback.
Paperback, and then my favorite, the audio. So
And audio. And the audio contains 6 bonus stories that
nice.
aren't in the book. And then
We got to get the audio then for sure.
and it's funny. I mean, it is funny. And when I sit down to write this book, I had read so many self-help books at that point. God knows how many, by all the greats: Wayne Dyer, Gabby Bernstein, Abraham Hicks, Deepak Chopra, Eckhart Tolle, you name it, I've read it, all of them. And there was one component that I never found in any of those books. And if I overlooked something, my apologies, but they lacked humor. And that was something that I really needed at that time. Because when you can laugh at something, then you've about halfway conquered it.
I love that. Yeah. Oh, I can't wait to read it or listen to it.
Yeah, so it's funny. I mean, there's a lot of funny stories that complement the lessons very well, and it lightens the mood. I mean, because you take quite the it's inner travel is what it is, and it's not a vacation. You're not escaping anything. You're facing it head on, and so I lighten the mood with those relatable stories.
That's awesome. I've read Gabby Bernstein's too, and I haven't read some of the other ones you mentioned, but I agree. I think sometimes it's so serious. You're just like, I find myself like when I'm done, I'm like, okay, what was it that she said? And I feel a little bit like pressure, like to just, so if there's a little bit of laughter is awesome. That's another anti-aging thing for us.
Exactly.
When you laugh, it's a boost in your, slowing down the aging process. So you're helping us there too, Paula.
Well, thank you. And also it helps people to see. Again, I was really intimidated by the spiritual people that and I thought, God, I'm never going to be like these people. And so that's why I included those stories about myself, so people can see if I can be that vulnerable to tell about all that shit that I did, then anybody can confront their regrets and their guilt with absolute, complete compassion and respect for themselves. That's another reason for those stories, not only to make you laugh and lighten the mood, but to relate and say, hey, you're not alone here. I used to do this too.
For sure. Okay, so then, I'll have your links in our notes here for the podcast. So is there anything else you want to share with anybody? Congratulations on the book. It's been so great talking to you. Maybe we'll have you back once I finish reading it, depending on our schedules. I know you're super busy. You're going on a lot of podcasts. So congratulations on all that.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. This has been wonderful.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then we'll keep in touch and I'll let you know when I'm done with the book.
Sounds good.
Okay. If you know someone who could benefit from a little boost in their health and longevity game, why not share this episode with them? It's always great to spread the word and help friends and family discover simple, effective ways to improve their well-being. And a reminder, I started this podcast because I really wanted to change more lives, and it starts with you. So if you want to share this or even leave a review, that would be fantastic, because that helps the algorithm really boost up the rankings for this podcast. And again, I started this podcast to live a longer, healthier life, but also so we don't end up in a nursing home. Okay? Let's do it all together. Thanks for tuning in. You guys have a great rest of your week.